Have you ever heard the saying, you are what you eat? Well, to add to that, you are what you listen to, and you are what you watch, right? So if you're consuming things that aren't necessarily good for you, be it on a physical level, right, the food you eat, or spiritual, mental level, right, the things that you watch and the things that you hear, those things will and are affecting you.
I'll tell you, many people say the world is a messed up place. Well, this is my attempt at fixing it.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of BigTalk. I'm your host here, Avon, and today we're going to be talking about how media influences you. So it's a well-known thing that, you know, in the health sphere, right, that whatever you put into your body, you're going to get out in your life, right? So depending on the things that you eat and the things that you drink, that's going to determine, or at least greatly impact your mood, how you feel through a day-to-day basis, how dry your hair and skin are, right? How much you can concentrate in a daily basis, right? It's going to determine your mood. Do you feel happy? Do you feel sad? All those things. It's even going to determine how you physically look, right? Do you want the six-pack abs or do you want the six-pack of beer? And why is this? It's because food is the energy of the physical body. Well, the mind and the spiritual body work very similar to this. So if you consume, in a spiritual way or a mental way, negative things that are unpleasant, things that scare you, things that you don't like, those things are going to have some effect on your life. So just like you watch your physical diet, you also have to watch your mental and spiritual diet. So let's start with music, right? In terms of overall consumption, right? In terms of streams and plays, overall consumption of people, hip-hop is the most popular genre. Right? Now, before I give this talk, full disclosure, I'm not, my intentions are not to degrade a certain genre of music or a certain group of people that listen to a certain genre of music. It's to expose the truth. It's to bring light into something that you may not be aware of. It's to bring light into something that probably is affecting you, but you don't notice. Let's do an experiment. Go on YouTube and search hip hop, search rap, whatever, right? And play the first song. Play the first 5 songs you see. Typically, you'll experience the same thing, no matter the song in this genre of music, right? Typically, right? Some are stories of perseverance and success and education, all those things, all those good things. While a lot of them, and probably most, are about things that degrade self, drugs and sex and false values and validation and all those things that aren't really good for you mentally. And again, this isn't a shot at hip hop or rap music, but this is what it is, right? We can't deny what is. So you think about, said negative messages, and you think about, the process that most people do when they listen to music, and that is that they hear the song and they repeat it over and over and over and over and over again, right? Out loud, consciously. And when you repeat something, be it positive or negative, be it a song or just a saying, over and over and over again, it becomes a part of you, right? Because in a way, and not to sound, like a conspiracy theorist, but in a very, very real way, singing a song can be a form of, self-programming, right? And when you self-program, when you sing that song to yourself, it eventually will, become a part of you. It'll eventually start to affect you. You'll start to internalize whatever message you're listening to. And when you internalize that message, it becomes an impression in your mind. And impressions must become expressions. What that means is that when you internalize this message, be it good or bad, it will materialize in your life in some form. So when I sit there and listen to songs about, women suck and money is the purpose of life, I'll start to view women in a very negative light in my life, and I'll start to have a very distorted view of money as well. And that usually for most people is an unconscious thing, but it is. And I could tell you a story, something that happened to me not too long ago. I have a little brother, and I was playing a video game called Fortnite with my little brother, right? He loves this game. So we're playing the game, and we have our headphones on, and there was like some little kid that joined in the game with us, right? I think a kid couldn't be more than 7, 8 years old, right? And in the background, I hear music. So my little brother asked the kid, "Hey, can you calmly turn on the music so we can hear the game, right? Because we're all in this game together, right?" The kid turns off the music and starts singing the song verbally. And the things that came out of this 7, 8-year-old's mouth, I couldn't believe, right? He was talking about sucking this and shooting that and smashing this and killing that and robbing this. I mean, it was crazy. I just couldn't believe, some of the things that this child was talking about, things that, he's never experienced. He's 7, 8 years old, things that he's never experienced in his life. This child is repeating this message over and over and over and over to himself. Now you tell me how he's going to turn out in 10 years. You can't tell me that this self-programming that he's doing at such a young age will not affect him. I mean, most people to this day still deal with childhood trauma. Most people to this day still deal with things that they were raised on, that things that made them who they are, right? Stemmed from how they grew up, stemmed from where they're from, stemmed from the things that they learned as a child. So a child sitting there internalizing this very, very negative message of what a man should be, you can't tell me that won't have a negative effect on him later on down the road. I don't remember the specific time, right? I don't remember the specific time or, really the exact story of when I did this, but I remember some time when I was in high school, and not to get too personal, but I was listening to, a said group of people, and I listened to this group of people, these 2 or 3 people, religiously. I knew every song. I love the artist, et cetera, et cetera. And I can tell you on a very deep level, a lot of the things that I would hear in these songs, a lot of the things that these people talked about actually happened in my life. Sometimes they would make the song, and then months later, that thing that they talked about would actually happen to me. And I didn't really notice it at the time, but upon reflection, years later, I can see what was happening was I was such a big fan, and I was singing these songs and bringing these words and internalizing them, and then eventually they happened in my life. So I remember at one point in time in high school, to make a long story short, I cut negative music off, right? I cut it all off. I cut off all music. I just stopped cold turkey, right? And one of the things that scared me when I did it, one of the things that let me know that this was a really, really, really big issue for me is the moment I did it, I immediately felt this superficial longing to hear that music. It was like this music was a drug, and I was an addict, a heavy, heavy, heavy addict, right? It was like, I have to listen to the song. I have to feel the tempo of the song, right? I have to hear the beat. I have to hear them say that. I got to, the music was a drug, and I just had to have it. And once I felt that emotion, once I felt weird, right? Not the same without listening to this. Once I felt like I needed this music, I knew it was an issue. So, it was a tough process, but eventually I cut it all away. And I don't know, afterwards I felt so clear-minded. And one of the many things happened, but one of the biggest things that happened was I began to view media in a totally different light. What I mean by that is I began to view media for what it is. I began to see movies for their underlying message. I began to hear songs for their underlying message, and really get a sense of the feeling that these media sources were conveying to me. And I began, most of all, and most importantly, I began to be much more selective on what I chose to hear and what I chose to see. And not just music, right? The same thing goes for movies. If you're watching a bunch of soap operas and romantic comedies, romantic dramas on all these unrealistic expectations, all these unrealistic depictions of love and depictions of relationships, right? Things that don't happen in real life, right? These crazy affairs, et cetera, right? If you consume that on a daily basis and you internalize that message, it's going to be really hard for you to date, right? Because, and you're scrolling down on Instagram so much, looking at all these models, someone who you view as a 10 in normal life, now you see that person as a 7, right? Because you've been on Instagram too much and looking at too many models. A lot of these gentlemen have been watching, Pornhub so much that their woman doesn't even turn them on anymore, right? I'm not trying to call anyone out, but this is an issue. This is a problem. because we don't realize that, consumption just isn't on a I eat food and I drink juice level, right? It's not just bound by the senses of feeling in my mouth and in my stomach. It's also bound by the senses of what I hear and what I see. Again, what you ingest mentally, right, will affect your physical life, right? If I eat McDonald's McRib sandwiches 7 days a week, you can't tell me I'm going to feel my best. It's just not going to happen. So when you consume, not the best content on a daily basis, on a consistent basis, you can't tell me you're going to feel your best and you're going to get the best outcomes in life. And think about it. It's such an easy fix, right? All you have to do is be selective on what you hear and what you see. Be mindful of these things because they will and are affecting you in a very real way. Before we go, I want to read something to you by an author by the name of Neville Goddard, right? He has a book called Your Faith is Your Fortune, one of his many books. I'm a huge, fan of this author. And he says this in one of the chapters. He's talking about what he calls the 12 disciplines of mind, right? These 12 qualities of mind that a man or woman can discipline for the benefit of themselves, right? And if they learn to discipline these 12 qualities of mind, they'd have better outcomes in life, right? And he relates these 12 disciplines, these 12 qualities of mind, sort of to the story of the 12 disciples in the Bible, right? And you don't have to be a religious person to understand this story. And this isn't necessarily a religious stance, but I think that in him relating it to the story of the Bible, it makes perfect sense, right? So here it goes. He says this: the first quality to be called and disciplined is Simon, right? Or the attribute of hearing. This faculty, when lifted to the level of a disciple, permits only such impressions to reach consciousness as those that which hearing has commanded him to let enter. No matter what the wisdom of man might suggest, or the evidence of his senses convey, if such suggestions and ideas are not in keeping with that which he hears, he remains unmoved. This one has been instructed by his Lord and made to understand that every suggestion he permits to pass his gate will, on reaching his Lord and Master, right, his consciousness, leave its impression there, which impression must in time become an expression. The instruction to Simon is that he should permit only dignified and honorable visitors or impressions to enter the house of consciousness of his Lord, right? No mistake can be covered up or hidden from his master, for every expression of life tells his Lord whom he consciously or unconsciously entertained. He's saying that just like Simon, one of the 12 disciples in the Bible, he's relating that to one of the qualities of minds he's referring to as hearing, right? And he says that, whatever you hear will affect your life, right? We talked about this in my episode entitled The Power of Now, on how consciousness, on what consciousness is from a brief standpoint, right? That however you feel about the world and feel about your life and perceive things inside will determine how things are outside. If I feel positively about the world and about my life on the inside, that will be outpictured on the outside, right? That's very brief. But what he's saying is that you can't hide how you feel inside to your psyche, to your consciousness. You are 100% going to be, outputting whatever you're conscious of being. So if you feel negatively about the world, you will 100% experience a negative environment on the outside. There is no way around it. You can't hide, you can't change the outside without first changing the inside. So he's saying that, if you consume negative things, if you hear negative things, if you let negative things reach your consciousness, right? And they can reach your consciousness because we're singing the songs over and over again and we're internalizing these messages, right? We're watching these shows over and over again and we're internalizing these messages. So if we allow those things to reach our consciousness, they will 100% be materialized in the real world. There's no way around it. He says that, when you allow those things to become an impression, right? When you internalize those things, they become an impression. He says all impressions must in time become expressions. So he's saying all things that go in must come out, right? What goes in must come out. What goes up must come down. So within, so without, right? So if I put a thing in, if I put this energy in, it must come out in a certain way, right? If energy is not created or destroyed, it's only transferred or transmuted. So if I put this energy in, it has to come out in some form, right? So if it's coming in on a mental or spiritual level, the way it's going to come out is on a physical level, right? A materialized form. I'm conscious of a bad thing. That bad thing will materialize in my life. No way around it. So in summary, you just have to be cautious of all the things that you consume. Just like you'd watch the things that you eat, you have to watch the things that you hear and the things that you see. So do your due diligence. Do yourself a favor. Do your due diligence in cutting out, or at least significantly reducing, or just being aware of how things affect you, right? Do your due diligence in being selective of what you hear and what you see. And I promise you, you'll be much more in control of your outpictured world. If you're more selective on what you eat, what you see, what you hear, all those things, you'll be much more in control in creating the life that you want. If this video provided value to you, go ahead and leave a like and leave a comment in the comment section and let me know. Let me know that one thing. We all know it, right? Let me know that one thing that you're watching, or that one thing that you're listening to, right? That's a guilty thing, right? Let me know that one thing that you're watching or you're listening to that you know you're not supposed to be consuming. You know it's bad for you in some way, or it makes you feel a certain way, right? Let me know that, every Tuesday night you keep listening to The Weeknd, right? You can't turn them off, and you know how that makes you feel. Or that Love and Hip Hop that you keep watching, right? Let me know that show that you keep watching, or that song that you're listening to that is affecting you in some way, whether you notice it or don't notice it, right? And I also challenge you. I'm going to give you a 7-day challenge. Whatever that thing is that you're going to write about in the comment section, right? That thing that you're going to put in the comment section. Cut that thing out of your life for 7 days. I mean, cold turkey. Cut it out, right? Cut that thing out of your life for 7 days, and then let me know how that changed your life. As always, this is Big Talk. Thank you for listening.
I'll tell you, many people say the world is a messed up place. Well, this is my attempt at fixing it.